Hello and welcome to Jump To It for IrishRacing.com and Betting Expert. I'm Shane Anderson. We've got a lot to get through on today's show as we look back on what was some terrific racing last weekend. Of course, we had the first of the classic races in the UK and also the US with the running of the 2,000 Guineas, the 1,000 Guineas, the Kentucky Derby, well known as the Run for the Roses, and of course also really competitive racing coming from France with the Prix Ganay, a really important race that has significance to some of the bigger flat races for the season ahead. We're also going to get an update on Envoi Allen, of course, who has been beaten at his past two starts, but it looks like the horse has sustained an injury. Let's welcome in the team as Stephen Harris and Ed Quigley join me. Guys, great to catch up once again. Stephen, I think it was pretty impressive to see some of the top-class three-year-olds back in racing last weekend with the classics, but perhaps some of the races didn't pan out as we were expecting.
No, I mean, it's a really exciting time of year, Shane. We've got lots of unexposed horses competing suddenly against each other. Master of the Seas was the disappointment for me last week in the 2,000 Guineas, just getting touched off right on the line. I thought he'd won when they went over, so that was a bit of a setback. But it's basically a time for learning, isn't it? It's hard to have really firm opinions at this time of year. Watch the racing, watch it again, watch the replays as much as you can. You'll see a million winners for next time.
We'll dissect the classic races shortly as Ed Quigley joins us as well. Ed, good to catch up. And again, it was interesting seeing some of the well-credentialed horses, and I'm talking by the market perspective. We saw some big market moves last weekend, but not many actually paid out.
Yeah, hi Shane. Yeah, there's some market shenanigans, weren't there? Especially in the old 2,000 Guineas, we'll come into in a minute. But yeah, all sorts of late moves, late drifters, and a lot of the O'Brien horses still racing the ambulance at the back of the field as far as the 2,000 Guineas goes. But yeah, it was a funny old day of betting moves, wasn't it? And but yeah, nonetheless, some really good action. I think we had some deserving winner, at least in the 2,000 Guineas, and yeah, onwards and upwards.
All right, let's get into the news of the week. We're going to start reflecting on the classic races, and we'll start with the UK meeting at Newmarket, of course, over 2 days, the 2,000 Guineas being the race for the three-year-old colts. I want to ask you, Stephen, your overall view on how Newmarket played for the 2 days, first of all, because it is a track at this early part of the season where you can often see a bias either to the stand side or to the far side. How did you feel that the track played?
Well, actually, I did think it was fair, and it was in perfect condition as well, to be fair. The previous meeting there was a massive bias against the stands rail, and it was virtually impossible for anything to win anywhere other than right up against it and off the front. But for the Guineas meetings, they were spread across the whole of Newmarket. Now, from watching the race point of view, certainly in the 1,000 Guineas, it's very hard to know what's happening when. My overall conclusion about the 1,000 Guineas was it was a very modest renewal. There was very little between any of the runners, and Santa Barbara, the favourite, didn't seem to handle the dip at all before running on again late. I'd be surprised if it was above average at best, to be honest with you. The 2,000 Guineas, probably pretty much the same. It was wide open betting. I mean, I think in turn it was pretty much 6-1 the field, which is unheard of in a race like that. Usually there's a standout contender, and I think it's probably a race that might not be that strong a form going forwards.
I'll ask you your opinion on some of those runners shortly, but Ed, as Stephen mentions there, some of the market moves, it was actually quite fascinating over the build-up of the week leading into the 2,000 Guineas. We saw some of the Aidan O'Brien runners being well-backed. We saw Joseph O'Brien's runner be well-backed, and then things sort of levelled out again on the day. What did you make of it all?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Wembley was very popular in the week of the build-up, wasn't he? Well-known tipster Hugh Taylor put up Wembley and attracted a lot of support. And obviously, then Ryan Moore was booked on as well. At least Ryan Moore, you presume, chose Wembley. You kind of even more market confidence. He was a massive drifter on the morning, though, wasn't he? As we said, and then Battleground, who was touching around 14s on the exchanges about an hour before the off, absolutely pummeled in the betting. Went off 9-2 favourite Frankie Dettori on board, and is still running now. I think it has to be said. Ran an abysmal race. So it was a race full of all kinds of bizarre kind of betting incidents, if you like. Yeah, Thunder Moon, the other one you touched upon, Shane, again ran no sort of race at all. As we're kind of summing up here, really, the race is pretty much about what those that expected to do something good didn't do, rather than perhaps there's not enough credit being given to the winner here, Jim Bolger, Poetic Flair, who I thought was a little bit keen early, but showed real battling qualities when he needed to, given the fact he was keen through the first couple of furlongs. It was just really interested listening to Jim Bolger afterwards, given that the one time the horse had lost a race was in the Dewhurst here last year when he ran no sort of race at all. So everyone, I think, at 16-1 had kind of pigeonholed, the horse doesn't handle Newmarket, blah, blah, blah. Well, why would Jim Bolger be bringing the horse back here if that was the case? And he said, look, the time he got absolutely stuffed at Newmarket last year, he would have been beaten in a Group 3 at Dundalk. It was nothing to do with the track. The horse was not right. I think he came back sick. There were a couple of issues with him. They got him spot on. And look, time will tell, like anything, great benefit of hindsight, how this race works out. I get a feeling we're going, as we always do, to see a lot more from the O'Brien horses later on in the season. I do think, we touched upon Battleground, and said his most impressive performance to date was on soft ground in the Chesham last year. I just wonder whether he looked a little bit all at sea on rattling quick ground. He could be won over a mile and a quarter with give underfoot later on in the year. But no, I think credit where credit's due. I think Poetic Flare did win well. How good he will be in the kind of great realm of milers, I suppose, we'll know by the end of the season when he's won 4 Group 1s on the bounce, won't we? But no, he was a deserving winner. But again, a lot of eyes naturally will be on what the Aidan O'Brien horses didn't do.
Stephen, before I get your opinion on the O'Brien horses, I want to ask you about Jim Bolger. I find him one of the most fascinating characters in racing. He's a genius trainer. He's someone who not only works with the horses to get the best result on the training track, but he's someone who spends so much time and energy researching all things, including genetics, to try and work out where his horses should be programmed best. He is one of the, I think, true greats of world racing.
He is, and he's an amazing man because he's stood the test of time. I mean, he's an old boy now, but he actually, I think I'm right in saying, discovered Tony McCoy to start with. So it's not just on the flat that he's had a huge impact. And he has been one of these people who's always tried to be ahead of the game, thinking of the next big thing. I mean, he's had an amazing career. And of course, the jockey on board, Kevin Manning, is no spring chicken shape, as you Australians might say. And he's incredibly strong. I mean, from a personal point of view, I was devastated that the runner-up Master of the Seas got touched off. But the ride on the winner, Poetic Flare, was so strong to get him up right on the post. Pretty amazing. I think Ken Mann is in his 50s. I mean, it's quite extraordinary that both of them are still at the top table after all these years.
Yeah, we'll talk about age not wearing some of these jockeys, with Kevin Manning winning the 2,000 guineas, Frankie winning the 1,000 guineas. We'll talk about that shortly. But I just want to get your view on the Aidan O'Brien runners, Stephen, because they were disappointing. Whether you look at Van Gogh, Wembley, Battleground, even Joseph's horse, Thunder Moon, based on what you saw on Saturday, are you willing to write them off as legitimate contenders for some of the bigger races this season, or are you willing to give them another chance?
Well, I mean, there's 2 schools of thought here. I probably tend to go with the second school of thought. The first one is they're all not fit and they all need a run. They've been incredibly weak in the market. Nearly everything has been. Santa Barbara was 6-4 earlier in the week after all the rumours went out to 3-1 on the exchanges before Harding later on. I mean, Mother Earth, who actually did win the 1,000 guineas, was sent off 10 and much bigger on the exchanges, even though Dettori was on her. My actual view is that I think he might have an extremely ordinary lot of 3-year-olds, to be honest with you. They have been very weak in the market. It's been very unusual because these days it's extremely expensive and aggravating to send horses from Ireland to Britain to race. He's sent a lot of horses. Most of them have been huge drifters on the exchange, double-figure prices, and they haven't taken part. I mean, my cynical view, perhaps he's got a very ordinary crop 3-year-olds, and maybe Godolphin, certainly Charlie Appleby, Gosden could be much more dominant for the rest of the summer.
Ed, do you see that similarly? Are you willing to put a line through these O'Brien runners at this stage, or do you want to see them again?
I think it's each individual horse on merit, shall I say. Like Wembley, I tend to think, I mean, this horse was beaten 4 out of his 5 starts as a 2-year-old. He's been beaten again now. It's not like he arrived here with a superstar reputation from last season, if you see what I'm saying. And I agree. I think Santa Barbara will improve through time and has a pretty stout middle distance pedigree. But as I say, Van Gogh, I don't think is any spectacular. Battleground, again, I think could be one of those that could win a good race when conditions allow. But again, I'm not making any cast iron assertions. I'm fencing him this one at the moment. Just to further Stephen's point, where I'd be slightly sided towards him, where Aidan O'Brien went on record a couple of weeks ago saying he did have a lot of his horses a lot further forward this time last year compared to previous years, and he said he's had a lot more first-time out winners than previous years. So to blame classic flops on sheer fitness, that seems a little bit straw clutching in my opinion. It's not like they've been beaten a few of these 3 or 4 lengths, I say Battleground, Wembley, Van Gogh, Joseph Thunder Moon, they're absolutely out of the washing. They're beating it halfway. So, I suppose time will tell. But, I do think they will improve. But whether they can get to the kind of levels you will expect them to do so, I said I will sit on the fence for that for now.
Well, Aidan may not have been able to get the 2,000 guineas right, but he surely got the 1,000 guineas right, teaming up with Frankie Dettori, which is pretty rare. We don't see that often, Stephen. But you've got to give a fair bit of credit to Mother Earth. She's won narrowly. She's done it quite impressively, though, and she stood up to what looked to have been quite a busy 2-year-old season. So she's clearly either holding her form or has progressed now into her 3-year-old year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking now. She's run 9 times in total now, obviously 8 as a juvenile. She certainly got a brilliant attitude, and she's been globetrotting. She went to Keeneland, and I often like to oppose horses who've had a trip abroad. They often take a lot of time to recover from it. But she's got a terrific attitude. As I say, I've got my doubts about the form. They were all in a bit of a heap, but you can't knock her attitude. I backed the second Saffron Beach of Jane Chapel-Hyams. Had more seconds than Oliver Twist this week, Shane. But I thought that ran really well. And the third, Fev Rover, who's actually part-owned by Hugh Taylor, the second time we've mentioned him today, that ran a blinder for the North back in third. But if you're being truthful about the level of the form, I suspect it's pretty low in the scheme of 1,000 guineas. Obviously, the fourth home is probably the one that's the most interesting going forward, Santa Barbara, held in high regard. And Aidan was interviewed after the race and said that she's a beautiful filly, got very well built, loads of scope, and obviously she's going to need a trip in time. A mile's going to be too short for her. I see she's around 3-1 for the Oaks, which is a diabolical price, absolutely diabolical. But you have to respect that she could improve. But she's very much priced on reputation rather than anything she's done on the track so far.
Well, Stephen, with your Oliver Twist reference, you still had a winning weekend last weekend, so no need to pick a pocket or two. What about you, Ed? Are you assessing Mother Earth as a filly that we want to stick with, or is there one or two others behind that you think could actually get past her as we progress through the Classic season?
Yeah, Shane. Yeah, it's a bit of a muddling contest. I mean, Mother Earth. There was a filly going back a few years from the yard called Homecoming Queen. I think caused a bit of an upset. Not quite to this extent. As in, Mother Earth was only 10-1 shot. I think Homecoming Queen was a bit bigger on the day. But it reminds me of that kind of a battle-hardened 2-year-old who probably didn't go much better as a 3-year-old, but just probably maintained her form. And it was a case of those in behind just hadn't caught up yet. And I don't think Homecoming Queen went on to win another race afterwards. And I don't want to say that about Mother Earth, but I kind of get a feeling this could be the type of race where there's some, I think she's had 9 races already. Santa Barbara's had just the 1 start in a maiden. I think the others will catch up as the season progresses. Santa Barbara is the really interesting one. She's obviously the talk horse. All the stopwatch gurus saying she was breaking every record going up. The Ballydoyle gallops were almost combusting. She was that quick. To back her now for the Oaks is a really interesting kind of question at the moment, isn't it? You're taking a filly at 3-1 who, if you look at the facts, has won a maiden and been unplaced in the Guineas. However, she's from a strong middle distance family where you think she will improve. And Aidan O'Brien, at the end of that interview, Stephen touched on, said if I just had another couple of weeks, I think she'd really come to hand. And obviously, there's a month to the Oaks over here. I think she'll go to the Oaks. I think she will improve for that, but she's going to definitely need to, because I think she'll meet a lot better horses over a mile and a half at Epsom than she met in this race. And as I said, on price grounds alone, not getting me excited to back a maiden winner and an unplaced Guineas horse at 3-1 to win one of the biggest middle distance races around. So yeah, she's got potential, but again, there's the final kind of, to sum up the classics, it seems we're talking about those in behind rather than what actually happened. And how good the winners are, we don't quite know. But I think Santa Barbara will improve, but she's going to clearly have to. Let
me put you on the spot then. Yes or no? Are you backing her to win the Oaks?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not at the price. Price dictates everything. Still a month to go. Right, she might go off 7-4 after breaking another stopwatch at home, but not for me at the price. No.
Stephen, yes or no?
No, definitely not. Aidan said that she didn't handle the dip, and if you watch it back, she did get a bit unbalanced. I mean, Epsom is the most undulating track in the world. I mean, it's hardly going to be ideal for a great big strapping filly for the first time in her career going down that hill and up the hill again. Not for me, no.
Yeah, I'm glad you referenced that because to my eye, she looked quite inexperienced as you would expect at only her second career start. She seemed to not be straightforward over the concluding stages. So whether she can improve and win an Oaks, we'll see in a couple of weeks' time. But certainly it was a good start to the Classic season regardless of the results. Let's move our attention now to the United States, the first leg of the Triple Crown. With the Kentucky Derby, we had a 4-horse battle over the concluding stages and a great story with Medina's Spirit winning, Stephen. $1,000 yearling purchase in the days where horses are being bought for millions and millions of US dollars. $1,000 purchase comes out and wins the biggest, most important race in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, it was an amazing run. It was a really good race as well. And what I like, Shane, I mean, I'm no judge of American form, but this did feel like a real proper international race with a big crowd there for the first time in probably 2 years. I think they had to rearrange when it was scheduled to be run. Bob Baffert's 7th Kentucky Derby, which is pretty amazing. And the race itself was a brilliant spectacle. As you say, £1,000 to own the Kentucky Derby. It gives hope to all of us who've got a leg in a horse and we're struggling to pay the gas bill, but we think we might win the Kentucky Derby. You know?
Well, reports are suggesting the horse may now be worth upwards of $50 million. Might be a stretch and a bit of cream on top with some of the media coverage, but it just goes to show if you can buy the right horse, you can get significant returns from a big race success. Ed, I know that you don't follow US racing that closely, but what do you make of dirt racing? From a form analyst perspective, from a fan of racing, there seems to often be a divide as to people who are true, passionate turf track racing fans and those, particularly from the US, who love the speed of the dirt racing. Do you have a preference? Do you follow dirt racing at all?
No, in a word, would be the answer, Shane. Look, I know lots of people who do and get really stuck into it. I mean, when you listen to a lot of the American judges, a lot of it is, in some ways, the way UK racing is becoming, in some extent, a lot of time, sectionals, pace, speed to the first bend, speed for the second quarter, a lot of it like that. Whereas you listen to someone like the late Henry Cecil, he said he never looked at the time of a filly in his life. It was all about whether she'd come in a coat, what the pedigree suggests, how she works at home, etc., etc. It's just totally different mindsets and ways of thinking. And I think that American dirt racing does lend itself to the how shall I say, like the kind of categorical, the quantifying of times and speeds and everything. And what, of course, is the great test for me is the one time I really do tune into American racing is when we have the Breeders' Cup and the so-called great European horses go on and take on the Americans. Not often on dirt, it has to be said, which does seem to be the American strength. So, no, I don't have a massive strong view on it or a massive interest in it, but nonetheless, it does still fascinate me on a wider point how it's obviously just totally different ways and mindsets of training horses and getting them to succeed. And in the case of spending $1,000, as Stephen says, we can all have a whip round later, gents, and we'll mop up next year's renewal.
Hey, got to give a shout out to Anthony Stabile, who joined us on the program last week, who gave a good push for Mandaloon. I think at the time it was around 15-1, jumped at 29-1, has been beaten in neck. He ran an enormous race, and Anthony will be back with us on Jump to It next week as we preview the second leg of the Triple Crown and the Preakness Stakes. Guys, the Stallion Australia, and of course being an Australian, I'm always proud to reference the name of our great country, but Australia was a terrific horse for Aidan O'Brien and Coolmore, but he's now doing a great job as a stallion. He had Sir Ron Priestley win the Jockey Club Stakes at Newmarket on Saturday, but I think he's got a really nice horse in the Prix Ganay winner, Mare Australis. Now this race for the past 2 years has produced the horse that would go on to win the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe later in the season. I love this win by Mare Australis. He controlled the race from the outset. He went around at a big price, but looked like he should have been going on as a very short price favourite. He was an impressive winner, but I think the other talking point out of the race was Mogul, who was beaten as a short price favourite in the contest, and I think there could be question marks about where he's positioned for the rest of the season.
Yes, I mean, I think Mogul looked an absolute hound, Shane, to be honest. Not for the first time. He definitely jacked it in off the bridle. Australis got a brilliant ride from, be careful with my pronunciation because I get a lot of stick, but I think it's Pierre-Charles Boudot. And he looks a brilliant jockey. I was quite impressed by that. He looks a brilliant jockey. I've really taken with him. And he dictated a perfect race on Australis, kicked at the right time and then found again for pressure. Quite what the form's worth. I do have my doubts. I'm always wary of horses who get an easy lead because we're talking about the Arc now for this one. Faber says that she needs 1 mile 4 at least. But whether in that sort of race, in a huge field, she'll be able to dictate and kick in that way. So everything went to perfection in the Ganay. Whether I'd want to back her for the Arc on the back of that, probably not. But it'd be interesting to see where she goes next, and also where Mogul goes next. I think he's going to be an expensive horse to follow this summer.
Ed, would you be wanting to back Mare Australis in a race like the Arc, say 6 months out from it?
She's 20. He's 20-1, which might not be the daftest of kind of prices, just purely given that it sounds like they will end up going there by hook or crook. And when you look at some of those ahead of him in the market, so many kind of doubtful horses. So half the battle from an anti-post perspective, when I go back to my old National Hunt brain, is it's knowing will they line up in the race. And if you're kind of your connections are coming out and saying, look, this is going to be the end of season target, then that does have to be clearly factored into the price of 20-1. And look, I think this horse is clearly progressive. Step back up to 1.5 miles will definitely suit. He's only actually tackled 1.5 miles once in his career and actually bolted up, albeit at listed level. And I also think the ground's quite an interesting talking point. The horse has failed to deliver twice in really hot, deep conditions. The two quickest grounds this horse has encountered officially on the kind of going stick, if you like, for want of a better phrase, have been the two most impressive performances. So that would also be something to factor in. We got a really wet October that probably wouldn't play to this one's strengths, but I think it was officially good to soft, they called it, at Longshot in the weekend. And I did like the way the horse quickened up and looked better the further he went. So I'm half tempted at 20s again, purely because I could, even if you don't think it's going to win, I could see it going off 8-1 on the day, and the connections are voiced. The aim will be the Arc de Triomphe at the end of the season.
Well, he's a son of Australia, owned in Germany and trained in France. He's a truly international horse, so I think I'll stick with him. Guys, I just want to touch on Envoi Allen. Of course, has been one of the standout performers of jumps racing over the past few seasons, but unfortunately has been beaten, falling at Cheltenham and then being pulled up at his most recent outing in Ireland. But Stephen, it appears that he's now got an injury. They've got a bone chip, which probably explains why he hasn't been anywhere near his best.
Yeah, I mean, he fell quite early on at Cheltenham, so you can forgive him that. I mean, he was 12 from 12 coming into Cheltenham, sent off one of the shortest price favourites of the week. I think that race in Ireland was perhaps one. He obviously wasn't really right. I don't know when he got injured, but he wasn't at his best, and they pulled him up quite quickly, which is a shame. Gordon Elliott obviously be back training him, although I doubt he's been far away from the last few months, in truth. I expect they'll freshen him up, get him back sound again. He remains a really exciting prospect, and his battles with Monkfish next season, let's hope they both get to the track fit and well. Something to look forward to.
Ed, I think one positive out of this is that bone chip injuries tend to be quite insignificant over time. We can often see horses be able to come back after a minor operation and race at their best again.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Henry de Bromhead has kind of alluded to that now. It's just going to be a quiet summer, let him build his strength back up, and then they'll go again in the autumn. So the wider point with him is, yeah, I'm prepared to forgive his fall at Cheltenham. It can happen to anyone, couldn't it? I mean, Cortic Star fell at Cheltenham, Moscow Fire fell at Cheltenham, for goodness sake. That was and then if he's generally had a chip in his bone, then no wonder he didn't run well at all, because everyone's saying, he didn't see out the 3 mile trip, crying out loud. Horse was beaten after a mile. It was only his jumping which kept him in it as long as he did. So back to the drawing board with him. On the bigger picture next season, it's the trip with Envoi Allen, which is kind of going to be my bugbear. I get a feeling they almost want to make him into a Cheltenham Gold Cup horse. But he's not short of dash, shall we say. And he got quite worked up. He was quite free before he ran in the marsh chase at Cheltenham. I just wonder, in a normal, ideal world, the Ryanair chase, I just gut feeling tells me would be his race. However, pretty much sounds like it's going to be all roads for Allaho, for the same owners lead down that kind of road next year. So in short, I think there's going to be a lot of owner-trainer politics with those Cheveley Park horses next season. But first and foremost, it'd just be great to see him back on the track doing his stuff again, because the horse has got an injury, and we all like to see these great horses in the shop window, don't we? So Envoi Allen, I'm sure he'll come back, and be very interested in what they do with him next season.
All right, guys, let's focus on some of the good races coming up over the next few days. We're right in the middle of the Boodles Chester May Festival. It's one of my favourite race meetings of the year, Stephen. And, of course, Chester's rather unique for UK racing. It's what we actually really determined to be quite a tight track. And it's a horses for courses venue where you see horses, regardless of form, can often come out and return to their very best on their favourite circuit.
Yeah, I mean, you need to be drawn low, Shane, stating the obvious. It's virtually impossible unless the ground gets really soft to come wide and off the back. We've seen already this week Frannie Norton, who's known as the King of Chester, of course, riding brilliantly to win the Chester Oaks on Dubai Fountain. That was really impressive. Looked in trouble early on, niggled along a long way out, but really quickening at the right time and showing a really terrific attitude. Franny Norton's brilliant at Chester, so's Mark Johnson. It's been great to get racing back. It is a place that's actually, like Goodwood, a place that is a terrific day out if you ever get a chance to go. Hopefully this will be the last meeting that's just been for owners only, and we'll get the crowds back at Chester in the next few months.
What have you made of Chester so far, Ed? With the fact that we did have not super soft ground, but there was certainly a bit of give in it, particularly at the opening day of the meeting.
Yeah, it's a meeting I love, actually. It really is. It's like the kind of velodrome or NASCAR track, isn't it, in regards to caster flat racing. Yeah, you're drawn in the car park, you're in trouble, generally speaking, unless it does get soft there. But yeah, it's always a great meeting. It's weird to see it so quiet. There's no fake tan, there's no drop champagne. I'm not just talking about myself, in regards to that meeting. But it's a good old time. I do enjoy it. Looking for later in the week, a couple of horses I'm looking at. I do want the old reigns to continue, funny enough. But it's a great meeting, really enjoyable stuff, and very much you look at you likes of Goodwood, Epsom, Cheltenham, very unique, very idiosyncratic, and very much horses for courses. The amount of horses you see at Chester who arrive with form figures 000, but C and D 4 next to their name and come back and win again. It's almost uncanny. Definitely a course specialist track, I would say.
Well, we're right in the middle of the classic season, and everywhere seems to be having a trial meeting. And we've got some really good trials coming up for the classics on Saturday. We'll start with Lingfield, where we have both the Oaks trial and the Derby trial. As we have a look at the Oaks trial, of course, at the time of going to wear, we haven't got finalised fields, but you can see that Divinely, Dubai Fountain won't back up after winning at Chester. High Heels at 11-1. Honours is at a big price, as is Invite. Loving Dream, the Gosden trained runner, the filly by Glen Eagles at 9-2. Nash Nasher for the Dubawi filly for Charlie Appleby's at 7-2. Ocean Road at 11-2, I'm quite keen on. Regent, certainly in the market at 11s. Rosebud, Savour Forest, Sherbet Lemons at a big price there at 16-1. Snow Fails at 10s. Technique well in the market, the daughter of Master Craftsman at 9-4, and Willow, the American Pharaoh filly at 9-2. Beautifully bred, of course, being out of that outstanding race mare in Peeping Fawn. What are you doing when we look at the Oaks trial, Stephen? Is it a race that you're keen on at this stage?
I think it's a race to watch and learn from, Shane. Loads of unexposed fillies. I really like Nash Nasher at Sandown. She showed a terrific attitude, got a positive ride, was taken on a long way out up the hill there, but battled on really gamely. I think she'll definitely appreciate a stiffer test of stamina. She'll get a positive ride. She's entitled to strip a bit fitter for that run. She does lack a bit of experience. She's only won a small field race on the all-weather, and it was a small field race at Sandown as well. But I think she's held in high regard, and she's very much Appleby's number one for the Oaks at this stage. Whether or not I want to back her at 7-2, probably not. But this is a race to watch over and over again.
What about you, Ed? Is it a race that's appealing to you at this stage?
Not from a betting perspective, Shane. Definitely one for lots of note-taking, lots of unexposed types, as Stephen said. However, I won't steal your thunder to come on to it later, but I do think that the Hugo Palmer representative in here is definitely a filly of real interest. She powered home over a mile last time out from a proper stout middle-distance pedigree, daughter of Australia. She's definitely one who I'll be keeping a close eye on. But again, far too much guesswork involved for me to part my hard-earned, it'd have to be said.
All right, let's have a look at the Derby trial and the makeup of the field at this stage. High Definition, who is one of the most talked about horses in training, even money favourite for the unbeaten Aidan O'Brien trained runner. Lone Eagles at 10s. Worko probably won't back up after running at Chester. Adiyars at 2-1, the son of Frankel. Carlisle Bay at 16s, Dancing King at 20s, Etonians at 28-1, Hector Tamare at 33s, Hurricane Lane at 11-2, Kyprios, son of Galileo at 10s, Luther C's at a big price. Recovery Runs also at a fairly big price for Andrew Balding, who's in good form at 25-1. Scope at 7s. Ross Orion to ride for Rafe Beckett. Sir Lucan at 33s. Third Realm at 16s, or 18s, I should say. And Yabur at 9-1 for Charlie Appleby. Again, still a few unknowns, Stephen, as we go to wear, with the field not yet being finalised, but huge expectation if High Definition can run. He's been the long-time Derby favourite, and people are saying he could be a champion. Yeah,
he's got a huge reputation. The one I like here is Adea. who last year started off at Nottingham and all the dogs were barking. He's one of the best juveniles Appleby's got, blah, blah, blah. He was very, very green first time out, running on late under a considerate ride. And then 2 weeks later, he put in a performance back at Nottingham that, I mean, those of us who watch racing a lot, not much gets us sort of to jump up. But this one by 9 lengths at Nottingham, it was a top-class performance. It looked really, really impressive and one to follow. And he came out at Sandown in a classic trial a couple of weeks ago, and I thought he ran an absolute blind. He was very, very weak in the market there, double figures on the exchanges. He got stirred up in the paddock, Shane, and then messed about going into the stalls and played up in the stalls, was very slowly away and poorly positioned. And Sandown's not an easy track on decent ground to come from well off the back. And I thought he ran an absolute blinder, running on strongly now. He's still raw and immature, but a stiffer test of stamina will definitely suit him. I have got some doubts about Lingfield, which is a very undulating track like Epsom is going to be. That would be my slight concern because he's a big unbalanced thing at the moment. He's a work in progress, but fascinating to see how he runs on Saturday. I think he's a definite runner. Buick's booked, I believe, and if he can come out the stalls and behave himself better in the early stages, he's going to take an awful lot of beating.
Ed, what's your thoughts on the Derby trial at Lingfield, and do you think high definition will step out there?
Yeah, again, I've just, what do they say? What's it? Once burnt, twice shy. Once bitten, twice shy. With the fingers burnt, twice shy. I don't know what you want to call it. But with the Aidan O'Brien runners at the moment, I mean, there is this fact that they just do need the run, and you give the benefit of doubt. They are just coming on for it purely fitness-wise. Prohibitive odds are just, they're cramped essentially from a price perspective. A lot of their horses, they're just still on the kind of hype train, and they could be really good in time. You just don't know at the moment. Funnily enough, the two Godolphin runners were the ones I'd circled. The aforementioned one by Stephen there, and Hurricane Lane was the other, who I do think, I wonder if James Dorr will end up on board if he does take his chance here. But the horse went really nicely at Newbury last time out. Power clear in the closing stage. He looked better the further he went, over 1.25 miles. Naturally looks as though stepping up a distance to 1.4 miles in time will be his bag. But again, very, very much fence sitting in regards to bets for these races, because I just think it'll almost pay to watch rather than pay to bet.
And in Ireland, Stephen, we've got Leopardstown, the running of the Derby trial and also the 1,000 Guineas trial. Let's start with the Derby trial. Baton Rouge for Aidan O'Brien. We don't have markets at the time of going to air. Bolshoi Ballet, Carlisle Bay have all been nominated. Fernando Vici for Donica O'Brien. Flying Visit for Jim Bolger. Can he win another feature race? High Definition, of course, also holds an entry there. Kyprios, Loch Durs, another one for Aidan O'Brien. Max Swinney, who was very good as a 2-year-old for Jim Bolger. Sir Lamorak, Southern Lights, Taipan. Team of First for Ger Lyons, the son of Zoffany. Wexford Soil, the son of Teofilo for Jim Bolger. And Wakood, also expected to step out there in the Derby trial. Stephen, again, we're seeing Aidan O'Brien and the Coolmore operation sort of making sure they got all of their horses nominated in key races. It can make it quite tricky, though, when trying to work out the form for some of these events a few days out.
Yeah, it's very difficult to have an opinion. We don't really know what's going to run either at this stage, obviously. I thought the Flying Visit you just touched on, Shane, was quite incredible. Not many horses run 11 times in a 2-year-old campaign, but this was sort of typical Jim Bolger. He was running virtually every fortnight and kept coming back for more, a really tough performer. He only won 2 races out of those 11, but they were in reasonable races. And the thing with Flying Visit, with a view to Sunday, is that he has had a run. He ran on the 11th of April. He did race too freely there, I thought, first time out, but shaped pretty well in finishing second. He's obviously a really tough, hardened performer, almost guaranteed to give his running. So whatever Aidan decides to run, and he's got half the stable declared in this race, Flying Visit will probably take a bit of shifting and is bound to run well with Jim Bolger obviously flying at the moment.
Ed, what's your assessment of the Derby trial at Leopardstown?
Yeah, very hard to get a strong handle on at the moment. Just a runner of interest, purely. Solamarak, of course, was declared for the Chester Vars, then was declared a non-runner on the count of the ground going too soft up on the Rudy. Obviously, I think it's good ground at Leopardstown at the moment, kind of mixed forecasts. That horse has been thoroughly progressive, as, of course, a distance winner, of course, in a handicap, fairly bolting up last time out. Looks to be progressing, arrives on a hat-trick I think they'll keep a weather watch for that horse because he was getting very well backed, or at least looked as though he was going to be the stable number one string for the Chester Vars, which is often a good pointer in regards to the O'Brien team with that race. So, yes, so Lamorak, if the ground's quick, I wouldn't be at all surprised if that one did take his chance.
All right, let's have a look at the 1,000 Guineas trial at Leopardstown. Of course, the Irish 1,000 Guineas trial. Acanella, the daughter of Dan Silly for Ger Lions. Jessica Harrington with Climate. Fantasy Lady. Flirting Bridge, I should say, for Henry de Bromhead. Of course, dual-purpose trainer Henry. French Fusion, Jim Bolger. Hazel for Don O'Brien. Joan of Arc for Aidan O'Brien. Let's, the daughter of Shalar. Lovely Esteem. Messador. More Beautiful, a beautifully bred daughter of Warfront out of that terrific mare Maybe. My Generation for Joseph O'Brien and the stablemate Sense of Style. Chandra for Dermot World, the Master. And the well-named Thinking of You, the daughter of American Pharaoh, out of Fabulous for Joseph O'Brien. That is the makeup of the nominations for the race. Stephen, who do you like?
Again, not a betting race, but a watching race. Ireland have got terrific strength in depth, haven't they, compared to the UK at the moment, in all codes, both jumps and flat. I really liked Acanella, who made a winning debut here at the start of April, very well backed, which would be unusual for one of Ger Lyons' first time out. I think she was much bigger in the morning and sent off 2-1 favourite, and she won with plenty in hand. She looked very high class. Quite what the form's worth, we just don't know, but that's true of all of them, to be honest. So the market will guide. I hope she does turn up because she's a very exciting prospect.
Ed, I saw you nodding feverishly there when Stephen was talking, so I think you might be aligned with thinking.
Yeah, just from a visual perspective, it was a really taking performance, wasn't it? She, tanked round, quickened up nicely, won the race, plenty in hand, I thought. You could argue maybe in time, kind of middle distance pedigree on the dam side to some extent. She's got a bit of a kind of a split pedigree, one of those eclectic mixes, I'd say. There's a good blend of speed and stamina on there. But look, from what we're seeing on the track at the moment, on that performance, clearly not short of a gear or two because she won that with plenty in hand. Obviously, will go up in class here, but the Ger Lions team as well, also worth touching upon. They've been operating around a 30% strike rate since the start of the season, so they've really come to hand early. All the Ger Lions strings. That's also definitely something to bear in mind. The yard of flying. So yeah, I thought she looked a really exciting filly. Look forward to seeing her if she lines up.
All right, that's a look at some of the key races coming up. It's now time for the tips of the week. And Stephen, we'll start with you. As you referenced yourself earlier, Oliver Twist, you had one winner and I think 3 seconds from your 4 selections, but you are in profit last week. Of course, Bell Rock landing the prize at 4-1. We were able to get Pile Driver, Master of the Seas and Saffron Beach all running terrific races, but just coming up a little bit short. Who do you like for this week, Stephen?
Yes, actually, just to touch on Pile Driver, I think he's very much a horse to follow. I didn't think he got a wonderful ride. Your horse, Ron Priestley, Shane, made all the running and was very strong at the finish, but Pile Driver travelled very strongly and was never put in that race, but I think he'll be winning plenty of races over middle distances this summer. On to Saturday, I've gone to Ascot for my 2 bets. The ground is good to soft in places at the moment. There is more rain forecast, which I'm not too worried about, although for the bigger priced one, it might not be a positive. In the 2:30, the 1 mile 4 listed contest, I really like Alba Flora of Rafe Beckett, who I think will love cutting the ground. She's run 2 really good races when it's been good to soft. All her family a soft ground background. And I'd loved her run against Berkshire Rocco here at Ascot over 2 furlongs further. Rafe Beckett has had 9 winners in the last 14 days. He's absolutely flying. She does drop back 2 furlongs in trip for this return, but I think she'll get a positive front-running ride. She's got a load of scope. She's only had a handful of runs. I think she'll take lots of beating. She's 9-2. I think that's a price probably worth taking now. I suspect the race might cut up if the ground goes soft. And in the Victoria Cup at 340, which is a huge field, 7 furlong handicap, worth a fortune, I very much like Cliffs of Capri of Jamie Osborne. Now, this one ran very well at Ascot on numerous occasions last season in huge field, particularly behind Blue Mist at the Royal Meeting. Has got form with cutting the ground, though most of his form is on good ground, so I don't want it to become heavy, but good to soft should be okay. And he ran really well under Safi Osborne, who claims £5 on his seasonal debut here, finished 4th, pulled too hard, didn't get home over a mile, back to a strongly run 7 furlongs. Cliffs of Capri is 16-1, I think it's a very fair each way bet.
All right, some nice options there at Ascot. What about you, Ed, as we reflect on your selections from last week? You didn't have the best of luck because Abracadabra was beaten, but your darling was a scratching, so you get to save a little bit of money there. What did you make of Abracadabra?
Yeah, all each way good things come forth, don't they? That was basically what happened. No, it's quite funny actually. That race worked out almost a champion hurdle from Cheltenham. The 1, 2, 3 were the same at Punchestown, and Abracadabra, who, fairness, looked a tired horse. I mean, we all have an excuse, don't we, on a beat arrival. But Jack Kennedy said, just felt the exertions of Cheltenham, then entry, and then Punchestown had just caught up with him a bit further at the end of the season. But anyway, he ran pretty well in defeat, it has to be said. And obviously, yeah, your darling didn't run, does run later in the week. So, we'll live to fight another day, and we'll go again this time round.
Who do you like this weekend?
Right, well, number one, on the flats at Chester, Brentford Hope for Richard Hughes. This is a horse who one time was quite fancy for the Derby. It's quite interesting, really. It goes to show how we get it wrong all the time and trainers get it wrong. They were literally thought they had a Derby horse on their hands. It was only since they dropped him back in trip that Richard Hughes said, look, we've just got it wrong with him all along. Essentially, he's a miler who wants plenty of give in the ground. He's just not a middle distance horse, and crikey, anyone saw his win at Haydock last time out, did not have to move a muscle, one hard held on the bridle. That was a very deep ground. It's not going to be quite as deep at Chester, I wouldn't have thought, but there's been a lot of rain around. They had over an inch of rain at the start of the week up on the Rudy. He's in their handicap here. I'm convinced he's going to be better than a mark of 98. The one downside is, we touched upon it, Shane, is he has been given one of those nice car park draws of still 9 of 12 over the extended 7. However, he is a horse who likes to be held up and come from behind. So I don't think it will be such a hindrance to him in his kind of running style as it would to perhaps some others. He doesn't want to kind of go from the gun, jump the gates and fly off in front. Ryan Moore's also been booked to ride. I think he'll be ridden, won't be held up, but I think if he's not in the first 3 or 4 as they kind of sweep round the first bend, that won't necessarily be alarm bells ringing. So I expect as patient a ride as you can with Brentford Hope, who I just think must be better than 98. I would just love to see more rain at Chester. And then my second selection, I'm sticking with the jumps for the Swinton, the big handicap hurdle at Haydock on the Saturday. Just a small play here, but with Coppolis for the Ollie Murphy team. If you watch back to entry in the conditional jockeys hurdle 3 weeks ago, this horse was absolutely tanking again, 2 out and tipped up. Now, these horses can kind of lull you into a false sense of security because it was 2 from home. We don't know whether he would have won, but there was no horse going any better than him at the time of his departure. I think the connections have got a little bit of gripe with a handicapper, which we all seem to do from all quarters these days, because he's been put up £3 for falling 2 flights from home, but so be it. Off 126, he's still unexposed. He's around 5 to 1. If he jumps around, I'm struggling to see how he's out of the frame.
All right, a couple of good selections there. Reflecting on my tips last weekend, well, I was lucky to find Sir Ron Priestley first up, winning the Group 2 Jockey Club Stakes, but then I fell up short with One Ruler in the 2,000 Guineas and Ashari. A little disappointing to my eye on the Sunday, but hopefully can progress and return the favour in the not-too-distant future. Just looking ahead to this weekend, I'm quite keen on Ocean Road, who runs at Lingfield on Saturday. Ocean Road, you could get as much as 9 to 1, but now into around 6 to 1 as an each-way option there with Betway. I'm happy to have 2 units each way on her. And Rodrigo Diaz stepping out at Ascot in the 4:15 handicap, I think at around that price of 6 to 1. I'm happy to have a 3-unit each way bet on Rodrigo Diaz. They're my selections for this weekend. So let's recap across the board with the team tips for the weekend. We'll start with Stephen's selections. He's gone for Alba Flora. You can get 9 to 2, 2 units. The win on Alba Flora. And Cliffs of Capri, 14 to 1 with Bet365. You can have 2 units each way with Cliffs of Capri. Let's recap Ed's selections for the weekend ahead. And, of course, Ed has gone for Brentford Hope. You can back it 9 to 2 with Bet Victor. And Coppolis, currently 5 to 1 with Bet365. And just recapping once again my selections for the weekend ahead, where Ocean Road for me in the Lingfield Oaks trial, currently at 6 to 1 with Betway, and Rodrigo Diaz at 6 to 1 at Ascot in the handicap. Looks a good each way option. Hopefully we'll be able to come out on top. Stephen, great to catch up once again. It certainly does look to be a terrific weekend of racing coming our way.
Yeah, it's a real weekend to watch and learn, Shane. I think perhaps punting stakes, keep them small because the weather could change. As Ed said, there's loads of rain in the forecast. So we've done our sort of work thinking good to soft. If it gets to soft or heavy, then lots of these thoughts go out the window. So tread carefully.
Ed, a similar mindset from your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the quieter weekends over the last month or so in regards to betting kind of angle. Lots of note taking, really informative, as you would expect with inverted commas trials. Lots of notes to be taken with a bigger view to the bigger picture and later on in the season. But nonetheless, it'd be exciting stuff.
Great to catch up, guys. Good luck this weekend, and we'll see you next week here on Jump to It. Well, it's Stephen Harris and Ed Quigley. Of course, make sure you head to our great resources at irishracing.com where you can get all the fields, forms, betting information, plenty of tips and lots of news with Vincent Finnegan and the team with irishracing.com. And, of course, bettingexpert.com, Stephen Harris with his daily best bet and value bet each and every day for racing in the UK. Hope you've enjoyed today's edition of Jump to It. Good luck this weekend, and we'll see you next week.